Okay, so a little bit of background about myself. I'm a Malarkey Roofing Products pricing analyst. And so as a kid, I used to be that one that would just prepare for every eventuality, and I would try and make sure that everything just went according to plan. And then if the plan failed, I would have a backup plan. And if that plan failed, had a backup plan. And it just kept on going and going and going. So what happened was I was expecting that this would all be okay. But I said, well, what if, maybe the internet's down, or because I'm web scraping, obviously we're going to need the internet in order to get stuff off of, let's say, Fuely or off of Amazon or whatever. And I did not expect that we would not have good internet today. And so, yeah, so it's the hospital. It's nothing on Greg. But before we get to that, a shout out to ProFocus for providing the pizza. Power BI, of course, CSG Pro, especially Greg for setting this all up. I didn't mention Alex, and of course, he needs a shout out as well. And of course, Mike Withicombe, my boss right over there. I've given him so much flack and grief while at Malarkey, and he's been a champ all the way through. So let's, yeah. All right, so this is the first website that I went to a long time ago, and I was thinking about web scraping with Power BI, and they said, hey, can you do this? And the answer was, yeah, of course you can. You just write a little bit of code, and it's going to look like that. And when I saw that, I got a little scared. A little bit of background about the analyst position is that I don't know how to do this. I really just don't know how to do it. And so then I got really interested in Power BI and into it, and I said, okay, well, maybe I could do it. Maybe there's got to be a better way. So Power BI has this wonderful function. Go up to get data, and this just came out a year and it came out a year and a half ago. So if you have a version that's outdated, that's not going to happen. Okay, and this is not working. So what you normally do is you go to the function called get data. Oh, yes, it's working. And then go to web. This will take about 3 minutes, in which I will try to kill time. And then let's say, so what I did is when Greg said that we're not able to web scrape, I was like, I think we're able to, and I'm really passionate about cars. And not only am I passionate about cars, but I'm passionate about efficiency. I want to make sure that our resources, to the best of our ability, get used up, every one of it. So I was thinking, well, how would we be able to compare or at least scrape data off the web? How would we know what the actual EPA versus the number that you see on your fuel tank when you go in and then you fill up your pump? And so the easiest way that I thought of doing that was to go to Fuely, which is in the background here, and go in and try to get the data bit by bit, essentially car by car, including all the little flavors. So if you have a manual transmission or automatic transmission, it would grab each one of those, including the number of miles driven, so we're talking in millions, and then it would take that bit of data and it would create one line in Power BI or in Excel, but we're using Power BI for this purpose. And so what you can do is you can grab a singular page, but you can't do multiple pages unless you literally go through every one of Fuely's websites and then go through about 30 years of Honda Civics that have their fuel economy attached to it. So the easiest way to do that is to use this from web. And this mouse is a little bit different as well. Let's see if we can use something else. Bear with me. Thank you. So unless I want to go ahead and do that, the best way is to use this function, and we'll say add table using examples. And then it'll take a little while to connect just because it's moving slow. And if it takes too long, we'll go and use plan B. Plan A. Plan A. All right. Okay, so what we'll see here is basically their distribution, and that distribution will have these vehicles. So we'll have to grab all of these data and then go bit by bit and have Power BI recognize this. So how do we do that? Well, we'll first rename this over to car model type or model. And then we'll say Honda Civic. We'll pick that first one there, which is that Honda Civic Sport. Honda Civic. And as we're doing so, we'll notice that it'll pick the first one. Let's try this 6MT. That looks like the right one. And then we'll say Civic for the second. That's what it says. And as you notice, it'll put everything else that comes after that. The next piece is going to go to see what their average in miles per gallon is. So let's say column 2. It's not letting me change the name. Average MPG. Also, this is not my computer. 9.3. So, very good question. I am so sorry. Wow. Yeah, what is going on? Where am I even getting this? What is it even going on? So what's going on in the background is we have a web page, and Power BI is looking at that web page, and it's grabbing the CSS that is on the page. So you've got this table. This is essentially a table, a glorified table. And you're giving Power BI essentially some examples of the data that you want to grab. And in this case, the data that I want to grab is the car model, the type, and the fuel economy. Ideally, I'd also like to grab essentially when it was added and some extra background that I can get from the car, but that's essentially the background. Oh my gosh, such a wonderful question. No, you cannot assume, and we will get to that in the limitations example, because this is wonderful, but it's not that good. Okay, oh man, it did it all for me. So, and then I will hit OK, and it'll grab that from this one specific page, from this one URL, and I'm going to put cancel because I'm not able to do the next piece, which we'll get to. Oh no. So once we've done that, we'll essentially get this populated page right here. All right. And then the next piece is to ignore the apply changes in the background. Bunch of code. Don't worry about it. We go to edit queries. Right. And then we'll have our PowerQuery. All right, and then we'll finally go to the advanced editor. So what we've done there is we've essentially grabbed one page. We've told Power BI, grab this one page. And now the next step is to say, okay, don't just grab that one page, but I want you to grab every other page and then have that data stacked right below the first set. So to do that, we'll go to advanced editor. And then you'll notice that we did a little timeout duration piece. And that is primarily for to wait on the website. So it'll go through each one of the pages and it'll wait. So there's some web pages that you go in there, and if you don't wait 2 seconds, it'll make the assumption that you're a robot, and then it won't let you grab the data that you're looking for. You have to add that piece to the code. That's the downside is the idea was to get under 20 clicks is to scrape pretty much any website that you'd like. And to make it as simple as possible. For that reason, I'll give Greg over the copy of this PBX file, and then you can use it for your own personal entertainment. It'll be great. The piece to add here, so just a couple of little bits. It's not a lot of code, and it's really simple, especially if it's coming from me. You have to add this name as text, right? And what that means is that we're taking this code and we're turning it into a function. In order to grab every single piece of like-kind data, you'll need to have a function. And that function, you'll need to have it read over everything. And that's what this is going to do for us. And we're going to tell it what kind of function we're looking for. When this is the last bit of data here, and that function is going to look for the year, and it's going to look for the summary year. Now, that's funky and it looks like code. In fact, it's really not. All this is looking for is all that is looking, if you look over at this small bit of text, Page 4. So we'll turn this large. Turn it to 40. Make it really large. This worked a lot better on my computer, I promise you. So what we're telling it to do is we're telling it to look for that delineator of Honda and then Civic, and then replace those with pretty much anything else, and then do the same thing for 2019. Using that bit of code that we had right here. And that's all that is saying, is look for those other bits. Once you've done that, you will expand that. It'll bring in every single one of those car models. And then you can expand it. Let's see if it pulled all the data in. No, it did not. And excellent. So it'll pull all of these data, and we're looking at about 18,000 rows or so. Yes? Say again? Yes. So let's, absolutely. So this piece of code right here is all you need to make it so that instead of just seeing Honda, it'll see anything. Now the downside to that, of course, so the good point is, well, what if I had an asynchronous, and we're getting into the piece of limitations here, is what do you have if you have an asynchronous app that you just tell it, I want zip code 97003, and I want to make sure that that zip code, once I put it in, it'll grab all the data behind that. Did that answer the question? Right, again. All right, so let's try. Obviously, this is not my computer, so we'll get to. Let's try Word. Oh man, thank you. Windows Plus. Oh, nice. Look at that. Oh man. If I were to do. How do you do escape? How do I escape? Windows minus. All right. Let's get. Thank you for bearing with me. Oh, this is great. Oh man. Oh, this is great. All right. So. Right. So, what was the question again? Okay. Right. So this is a wonderful. Look at that. Okay. So essentially, the year is the wildcard. This is the table, and we're looking for average MPG. If I had the code, I would be able to actually delve into it a little bit more. So let's look at a little bit some of the limitations. And say again? No. The code, all of the code is created for you. The only piece that you need to do is to change that one little bit, which is, say again? That's the first piece. And then the second piece is going to be what it's looking for. And in this case, it's the year, the average MPG. Yes. Oh. It doesn't break, but like you've noticed, up here at the top, I can get this closed here, or any one of these closed. Okay. Right, so as you've noticed, we have this apply changes bit. And right now, what I did for the purposes of this presentation is I turned it into an Excel page, just in case we may have had a problem. So if we go to apply changes, it's going to break and it's going to try to make a connection to the table. It's not going to be able to find it because it's looking at that XLS X as opposed to looking at the actual website. And so that comes in useful when we're presenting and you're not able to actually access the internet. So then, just in case. But no, so normally, yeah, it connects to the web page. It doesn't extract, like we'll see here. If the web page were to delete a column and we were going to refresh that, then no, we wouldn't see it. If we were to refresh the data, no. It wouldn't break the actual, it wouldn't return it. That's right.
You know, that data source might actually still be there on the page, but that was a rename if you look under the hood on the page. So I bet there's some risk there, but
I agree with that point, and I think it's valid. And so what I did before this presentation is I looked to see if the metadata itself had changed, because I wanted to make sure that we had the most up-to-date information and that we were able to query it and then have it so that it would be in real time. So for example, when we were going through here on page 5 and we were talking about looking for the name. So here we have the tag, right? Look at Fuely. So do me a favor, go to fuely.com and then look for the car. Okay, so I've got that bit done. And then I want the name and I want you to wait, etc., a number of seconds and then extract that table. So if that changes, then that's really the biggest issue. So what happens when that does change? Well, here we did a couple of the models. I wanted to show everyone that Ford obviously has a lot of cars and a lot of model numbers, and we can delve into that a little bit more. And obviously, a Barth being a Fiat does not. But before we did this, obviously, we cleaned some of the outlier data. So some of the models that didn't get as much fuel economy, or maybe somebody put in their car model as a Freightliner when in fact it was a Mercedes. And then here is their MPG. This is, you just take this data and then put it in the normal format, which we all know and love. However, what happened at Malarkey Roofing Products is not a real story, but it gets very close. So our marketing director accidentally lost the key to one of the databases. And the database that he lost it to is the one where it tells you where to buy product. It's probably bad. I don't know, I'm not a marketing director, but I would guess that would be bad. So, but he did not lose the key to the other database, which was the one that you can make changes to. If you know the exact problem that you have, let's see, go to Malarkey Roofing Products, shameless plug.
You don't buy your product, you don't buy your roof through the website? Man,
So
these days.
it worked. Okay, so if I plug in 97301, that's where I live. Within 25 miles, it'll tell you that I've got these folks, Chris Mason and Cody Grabenhorst. So it'll tell you that in, oh, hold on a second. All right, and as you can see, we see their names. So what I would want to do is if, let's say we lost the key to one of the databases, but not the other, that we can make the changes. Let's say that Chris decided the next day he doesn't want to work from the market anymore. Well, we need to go ahead, grab the entire database. So scrape all of Malarkey, this website. So what you do is essentially get a list of zip codes throughout the United States and then say, okay, plug it in to this zip code here within Power BI using the web scraper that we just did. And then you see what the matches are. And then you take those matches, you look at what the current sales roster is, and then you do a fuzzy VLOOKUP or a VLOOKUP if it's accurate enough. And then say, okay, which one of these does not have a salesman or the salesman is not accurate? and then you give it over to the director and say, hey, don't lose your keys anymore. The downside, though, is, as you can tell here, Malarkey Roofing Products uses an asynchronous application that's embedded within this website. So I've tried every single way that I could, and I wasn't able to find out how you'd be able to basically embed this where you have those extra 2 slashes, or that Malarkey Roofing Products would go to 97301 as opposed to 97006 or 003 or what have you. And so that's been my biggest hang up, is that it's capable of not able to handle this. So for something like that, I would suggest maybe Octoparse, or you could use BeautifulSoup if you're into the Python kind of thing. And then that's how you'd be able to handle it. If you have any ideas, please interrupt me right now, because I've been looking for them and I want to know. All right, with that being said, I'd like to thank everybody in the room.
Want to do questions? I'm sure people got questions for Radu.
Oh my God.
BeautifulSoup.
BeautifulSoup is a Python library that you can use in order to scrape data. Does that answer our question?
Yep.
Yes?
I'm assuming you'd have the same issue with login credentials. Any website that requires login credentials, you couldn't.
Right. So with that one, if he doesn't have the key, he just doesn't have the key. There's nothing we can do for him. Yes?
What would happen if, like, instead of a name like Honda, they had a 16-digit code that identified, you know, the make, model, year, that was all different. There was no, you know, name.
Do we have a master key for what those codes mean in a different table? How would we be able to decipher what those master codes would mean? Right, so like if I knew what that information was, what each one of those codes meant, then absolutely we could make that change, and then we could have the equivalent of a VLOOKUP simple that would be able to pull in that data.
I have a great example for that. Like, I had made a web scraping tool for like Pokemon data for kids. And so what I had done was scraped all the Pokemon, like names and their number, and then they had like all their abilities on a separate web page, and I mashed them together and was able to show, like, you know, you click on a Pokemon picture and then up would pop like all their info. So you can definitely like bring web pages together as long as you have a key. So, questions? Let me bring this up there.
Could you use this? I don't think it's on.
It's just record.
Okay, sorry. Could you utilize this to go into, like, let's just call it like a bank account, like chase.com, and have
I would love, man.
have like let's say my account, right? Like, I want to create just want to look at all my transactions without going into my bank account on chase.com, but can I set a query up that allows me to log into Chase and actually pull the data, similar to like a bot that could go into, you could set a bot that will go into something like that and download the data and set it into an Excel for you.
Do we have keys for each one of those websites?
I have no idea what you mean by keys. But
do we have the login credentials of each one of those websites?
Yeah.
We do.
Yep.
Okay. So that was one of the limitations of this presentation, is that I have not yet embedded exactly how do we have pass-through. So we go through and then essentially say, if we've got the keys, we'll do a query within each one of these websites, and then we'll grab all those data. Every other web scraper that I know of that is worth your time does that, if you have the credentials.
So you can't use PowerQuery with like a credential pass-through.
Okay.
Yeah, so with BeautifulSoup.
Do you think creatively you could use the Python coding within Power BI to do that for you? Like, you could put the pass-throughs through the Python using some library or something, and then build that out and then use the other side of the query?
Absolutely. Right now, that has been outside of the scope of this presentation.
Sure.
Primary reason for that was we'd have to do a lot more lines. So I did look at that, because I was like, well, the next question is going to be, okay, what can I do that's going to be looking at something that's more in depth than what we're currently looking at? And this is really high level. It's not going to help you with much more than websites that have parse data or websites that are essentially novice in the way that they present their data. And then obviously, of course, with that comes too, is you're probably going to want to make sure that the people that so when you're presenting, probably going to make sure that they're going to be okay with you scraping their data.
I've seen in a post from Chris Webb, he was using a for each in the M code, the for each statement. Have you tried other methods like that, and how do they compare?
No, I have not tried that method. But yes, very good. Chris did do that. There were 2 others that did it. And then the other, there were 4 other videos that I saw online. All of them came out basically at the beginning of 2019. And so now that I'm presenting 4 months later, it's a little bit outdated. Yeah, good question.
Maybe this is me being a moron, but can you say some use cases for why you'd scrape? I mean, for example, if I wanted my Chase data, I'd probably just go into the UI, right? I mean, just wondering.
Mm-hmm. So just pull it. Mm-hmm. So the point, the statement that was made for the audience over there is that the use case that we'd like to. So first off, what are the use cases? Secondary, we have a problem at our company where we'd like to see Power BI go in and basically automate a recurring process. And so the first question I would have there is, have we tried using an OCR scanner or some type of template using an OCR scanner tool and optical character recognition, excuse me. So have we tried doing that with zonal OCR? And then what that would happen if that process is recurring, essentially it would grab those data and then it would put it in Excel form. Or have you tried talking to the bank so that the bank would give you an Excel sheet that you could do an extract from every single day, or that they would do an automated query and then send you the data automatically. And then you can just check a couple once in a while and then they give you that information. Yeah, and then to go back to the wonderful Rachel's point, some use cases. So Malarkey Roofing Products has a lot of competitors, and we would love to get our hands on our competitors' data, specifically what they're selling their shingles for and the cost that they're paying, the internal costs they're paying, as well as the pricing aspect of what it costs at Home Depot. If I were to go buy a bundle of their shingles, what I'm going to see it for. So if we were able to do that, obviously not ethical in this case, because they'd obviously say no. All right. Well, and it's not hidden in the website. I've looked at their stuff, so I might know. But so that's not really my passion, because I do not like going into unethical locations if at all possible. What I'm really excited about and is really excited about using this web scraping for is every single time we have a Power BI symposium or otherwise where it comes time to show off our Power BI skills, we always are asked, get a data set and then go ahead and put it in Power BI and then present to everybody, right? So there's 2 ways that you can do that. A, you go to where they can already give you a data set, like Google BigQuery is really cool. It's awesome, you should use that. Or you can essentially scrape the data off of a website that you're excited and passionate about, as long as it doesn't use an asynchronous application. And then you'll be able to take that data and then compare it to whatever other data set that you can, as long as they match or within reason of matching. So that's what something I was really excited about.
I really liked your use case though of getting like public pricing. Let's say if you need, or if you need some sort, or if you have another organization that has public data and their export data function is usually unclean. If you can just scrape their website with a tool like this, then that much better because you just get it into the tabular format that you want.
One of my good friends, Mason Tuttle, he works in Malarkey Roofing Products. We were chatting, and this was the holiday party at Malarkey, which we tend to have a little bit of alcohol. And we were having a great conversation about how we could use Power BI scraping functionality to then match that up to the junkyard. I think it's a GNR auto wrecking or something of that nature that they do auto auctions, or the auto auction house that's right next to Malarkey. And then what that would do is you could scrape all of those data. It'll tell you all the cars that have not been sold or the cars that have been sold for a very low price. So then you could do a matrix on the ones that are brand new cars, which they don't tell you about, and then look to see which ones you'd like to pick using this wonderful web scraping. And then just walk next door, and then you put your money down and you get a great car, and then you'd have to fix it.
Awesome.
With that being said,
Questions? Let's give Radu a round of applause.
thank you very much.